So we're going to discuss a topic that's been bantered about at the club for many weeks, games, months, years. It has to do with trying to figure out some ways to a combination of speed up the game, but even more so to give the players more bang for their fee. If one has the opportunity to pay 21 or 24 boards in a novice game or in an open game, a lot of people are happy. Some people are much happier if they play 24 or 27 boards in an open or a novice game, which can be done technically. 27 boards at 7.5 minutes per board sounds to me like, let's give it a shot. 27 times 7.5 sounds to me like 202 minutes. So that's kind of pushing it a bit. 202 minutes is well over 3 hours. Let's try 24 boards at 7.5 minutes each. That fits exactly into 3 hours. Where things start to get complicated is where, let's say we're playing 21 boards. Mathematically, they can fit into 157 minutes. Out of the gate, I put together some data related to the amount of time that's spent doing things which detract from the actual playtime, which extend the playtime for each round, which ultimately could possibly extend the full length of the game well past the time allotted, which is basically 3 hours or 180 minutes. So let's pretend that this is a good estimate. So 157 plus 27 comes to 184.8. So it's just basically just over the 3 hour mark. And that is if each board takes 7.5 minutes. Let's say each board, based on more experienced and more appropriately aggressive time management players, let's say each board takes 7 minutes. We're now at 147 minutes for 20. How many boards was that for 21 boards? So 147 plus 27 is 173. So we're getting very close to the 3 hour mark. We've got a 7 minute window. So let's see how we got here. We're looking at a 24 board game. This is part of housekeeping line one. Let's say you're sitting east and north is the declarer, so you're on opening lead. You put your cards back in the bidding box. You fold your cards up, you put them on the table. You reach over to your side table or you grab your scorecard from the right-hand side of your corner of the table. You write down the contract. One of the players, let's say, sees that you write down 3 hearts in the north and corrects you, telling you that it's 4 hearts in the north, doubled. Oh, so you have to erase it and you have to put it down properly again. Then you pick your cards up, you fan them again, and you make your opening lead. So let's say that happens at one table every round. 10 seconds to do that. Granted, I extended things a little bit to make a point. 10 seconds to do that makes up 240 seconds for a total of 4 extra minutes added to the game. Browsing the results. Some people like to do it. I spoke to a very experienced player last week at one of the games at Pineview and asked about suppressing the results. And this person reminded me that during most of his bridge career, probably well up until the mid first decade in the 2000s, if not later, he had travelers to look at, and he always looked at the results, and he likes the results. But that's him. And now with the magic of bridge webs and the graphics and the likes of bridge webs, what the information that you see when you browse the results is available on bridge webs. Not only that, all of the hands are there. Nice color coding. The percentages are color coded, and if you're so inclined, you can replay each possible contract. So let's say that happens at every table at least once per round. Again, we're saying 9 seconds. It could indeed be longer. Why don't you start counting 1000, 1001, 1002. Ready, set, go. 4 hearts down 2, 3 diamonds made 6, 5 hearts made down 3, 3 no trump made 4, 2 clubs made 5. You know, that happened a couple times. Yeah, that's a bottom board. How many seconds was that? 9 is probably on the low side. So there's an extra 3.6 minutes. Even though yours truly could be guilty of this from time to time, if not more often, getting doing something other than something that has to be done mid-round is eats up time. So you're on, let's say South is playing the dummy, you're on trick six. South is plays the card to trick six that she's asked for, and then the declarer sits there and thinks and thinks and thinks, and South decides she's going to go get a coffee. On her way to get the coffee, nature calls, let's say. On the way back from towards the table, she stops and has a quick word with somebody standing by the snack table and ends up going back at the table to arrive to see west, north, and east all sitting there with their cards, patiently waiting for South to bid, who's for South to make the first call, who's actually the dealer. So I'm saying that happens, let's say, 6 times during the game, 32 seconds every time. We're chewing up 3.2 minutes. So we're just getting out of the major time consumers, and we're already at 10.8, 11 minutes. Those 11 minutes are robbed from the 3 hours. So we basically now got 3 hours and 49 minutes to play 21 boards, 2 hours and 49 minutes rather than 3 hours. So sometimes before players put the cards back in the board, let's say this were to happen 5 times and there was a discussion and oh yeah, maybe, yeah, I think that probably the heart lead might have allowed us to make it. Well, no, actually, and then partner pipes up, so on and so forth. So let's say that happens 5 times, total of 32 seconds each time. The sit-out pair is sitting in the alcove or sitting in the bar area of the club. When I say bar area, of course, it's the beverage area. And they're not paying attention, and the round's called, and they continue to sit and sit and sit and sit. And all of a sudden, hello! And the sit-out pair comes back. Let's say that happens 4 times during the game. You're looking at a total of 2.1 minutes. This business about the person on opening lead recording the contract before the opening lead is made, or let's say before the card is selected and the opening lead is made. So the dummy records his contract before placing his cards. So I've seen this happen many times. East makes the opening lead. Before East makes the opening lead, the dummy puts her cards down on the table. East makes the opening lead. Dummy finishes recording the contract, folds her convention card up, places it back in the place from whence it came, and places the dummy. And as she's placing the dummy, the cards are either haphazardly placed on the table or she takes the time to arrange them properly, and the declarer starts to think. This 5 seconds is a very liberal estimate. It's probably considerable more, but that happens, let's say, at one table every round. So that's 24 tables. I think I might have mentioned this is 21 board game, but this example I'm using is, of course, a 24 board game. Guess who's guilty of this? Just like everybody else, it's called not paying attention, and I don't realize that it's my turn to play to a trick. I'm distracted. I don't realize I'm the dealer, so on and so forth. Let's say that happens 12 out of 24 times at least one table for 10 seconds, and we're looking at 2 minutes. Now we're getting into the somewhere between small and what could be referred to as micro time consumers. North forgot to record the opening lead when it was made, so has to inquire from the people at the table if indeed the club is recording the opening lead. The contract belonged to West, so North was on opening lead, interestingly enough, and cannot remember what she led, and somebody else at the table says, I think it was the 4 of hearts, and North pulls her cards out of the board and starts looking through them and doesn't even have the 4 of hearts, so corrects to the 3 of hearts and so on and so forth. Let's say that takes 8 seconds every time, and it happens 11 out of 24 rounds. Or no, let's say 11 out of 24 boards. There's the time consumer of 1.5 minutes. As East-West are putting their cards back in the board, they want to have a discussion about this. It happens 6 times out of 24 boards, taking an average of 14 seconds each time. And in what seems to be an infinitesimally, I think that's it, small amount of time, it all mounts up. Somebody forgot to turn off their cell phone. They go off twice, and then somebody answers the cell phone and just excuses himself from the table, comes back 40 seconds later. That's chewed up 1.3 minutes. And of course, the whole table, the whole game isn't waiting for that person. But as we all know, there's a ripple effect. When a table slows down, east-west on the Mitchell moves to the next table. North-south is somewhere between disappointed and a little bit, if not a lot, impatient about the length of time it took. And it basically has a ripple effect on the whole game. Let's say Dummy's left the table and has got caught up in some activities on the way back to the table and comes back to the table 20 seconds. It happens 3 times during the game. We're looking at a minute. 7 east-west moves to 8 east-west. Oh, yes, she has to go back, or he has to go back and get his water bottle and his convention card and his sweater. Takes time. The cell goes off. Some clubs, the director will enforce a rule where the first time your cell goes off, you get a warning. The second time your cell goes off, it costs you some master points on a board. We are not considering doing that at the bridge connection, but it's just an example of the way some places deal with it. If you do not know how to put your cell on vibrate, if you're not going to turn it off, if you do have it at the game, you might consider asking someone. I'm sure there's someone at the game who has a cell very similar to the one you have and can show you how to put it on vibrate. As we all know, the problem of putting a cell on vibrate is sometimes we forget to take it off vibrate. And just before we crash in the evening at about 11:15, we look at our cell phone and it says 7 calls missed. And some people, that could be quite annoying, but it's a training, it's an experience. So let's run some more numbers. Let's say browsing the results, as it turns out, it takes more like 13 rather than 9 seconds. Look what happens to the total number of minutes chewed up in non-playing time. It used to be 27.3. It's now 28.9. In other words, 27.3 to 28.9. Is that a big deal? No. But 10 times 1.6 minutes is huge. North asks about opening lead. It's a little bit more complicated, and there's some more surgery that has to be done, and it actually takes 12 seconds. We're now up to 29.6. We started at 27.3. We're now up at 29.6 minutes. So I think you know where I'm going with this, or where we're going with this, and this is a experience. There's absolutely no doubt that the more experienced players sometimes are less disciplined than the less experienced players. C'est la vie. And if we could all find the time to pay attention to exactly what we do and how long it takes us to do things at the table, I think that we will all be a lot happier if we are able to get 24 boards in, 21 boards in, or whatever, in a 3-hour period.